I'd like to call the Tuesday, September 5th, 2023 Papillion City Council meeting to order. Ms. Brown, would you please take the roll?
Sunday. Here. Mumgard. Here. Gaines. Here. Glover. Here. Fansla. Here. Klug. Here. Stube. Here. Engberg.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. And do we have an affidavit of publication on file?
We do.
Current copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the back of the council chambers. One quick note, we have two meetings actually tonight. One is a budget hearing, and the public notice said that meeting would start at 7:30. So if this meeting goes beyond 7:30, we'll just continue this meeting and then immediately go into the next one. If we wrap up early, we'll actually adjourn and then wait till 7:30 to start the next one. So put that out there. Ms. Powers, Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Black. You stole my thunder. I was going to make sure they were aware of that, so better you than me. Just a couple of events then to remind you guys of. The last two Friday night bites at the landing will be on September 15th and October 20th, and there will be food trucks and family-friendly activities if you guys get a chance to stop by. Another exciting event is the Sump Library will be hosting the Papillion Book Fest on September 16th, and there'll be writing workshops, story time, literary trivia, and other exciting events. So another community event we're really excited about. And then Papillion's Butterfly Garden at Veterans Park has been up and running for 3 years. It's amazing to believe it's been 3 years already. And to celebrate this accomplishment, there will be a garden party at the Butterfly Garden on September 24th, and that's from 3 to 5 p.m. The public is invited to attend to help celebrate the many accomplishments and new additions at the garden. And then finally, make plans to attend the 55 Plus Club's 8th annual Fall Festival fundraiser on October 7th, and that's from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And there'll be arts and crafts, a flea market, and a bake sale. And this is one of the club's biggest fundraisers of the year, so if you get a chance to support them, that'd be great. It's obviously a great community event that we support, or group that we support, and that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Councilman Gaines. Second by Councilman Glover. Any proponents or opponents? I do want to take a moment to introduce Mr. Milkey. One of the agenda items, C6, is the appointment of Craig Milkey to the Planning Commission. We had an individual whose term was up, and then the new board we created for the Property Maintenance Code, he moved over there, so there was an opening. And on the Planning Commission, one member must be from the ETJ, so that was the position that opened up. And so Mr. Milkey had expressed some interest. I think most people probably know him. He's highly involved in the community. And maybe share a little bit if you want to. I was just going to say, I think you're an environmental engineer. So engineering and environmental science is kind of as a background, doing a lot with
environmental
wetlands.
Science, natural resources, environmental science from Purdue in '98, and I've been an environmental planner working with engineering consulting firms for the last 25 years. So.
But when we were talking, we were real clear that we don't want necessarily the professionals on the Planning Commission, but we want our regular citizens, and he's highly, highly involved in the community. So I think he's got a good pulse on things. So thanks for stepping in.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Is there any other proponents or opponents on the consent agenda? Is there council discussion? Please vote.
Eight yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes, and then the official swearing in will be at the October Planning Commission. So thanks again, appreciate it. Next is item D1, Ordinance 2008, an ordinance to amend Municipal Code Section 153-3 and to repeal 166-2 and 166-11 to clearly address permitted obstructions with the right-of-way. Is there a councilman will introduce? Introduced by Councilman Engberg. E1, Ordinance 2006, an ordinance to amend Papillion Municipal Code Chapter 69 regarding salaries. It's a public hearing. I'll open it. Do we have any proponents or opponents? Welcome. And if you'd state your name and address for the record when you come up.
Edward Weniger, 1709 Ridgeview Drive. Since we're taking this time to talk about salaries, I just want to share a broader opinion about budgets, and as we increase.
We're going to have a budget hearing later on. This hearing is specific to salaries if we want to stay on topic, but the broader budget one will be the 7:30 meeting.
Okay, this is about salaries.
This is salaries,
yes.
not broader budget.
Yes.
Correct.
I just want, Okay, yeah, I just want to point out that as we are increasing revenue and bringing more money in, that while I appreciate all the staff does and all the hard work that goes on in the city, that just making sure that we're taking opportunities to return money to the taxpayers and not just continually increasing spending. So that's all. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Any other proponents or opponents? Close the public hearing. Item E2, Ordinance 2007, an ordinance to establish the 2023-2024 salary ranges for management and exempt positions. It's also a public hearing. Proponents or opponents? For the record, we can carry those same comments over to this item too. But any other comments? I'll close the public hearing. F1, Ordinance 2003, an ordinance to approve an amendment to the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. Is there a motion to approve Ordinance 2003? Motion by Councilman Glover. Second by Councilman Stube. Any discussion, council? Please vote.
Eight yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. F2, Ordinance 1963. An ordinance to approve a change of zone from AG Agricultural to LI Limited Industrial for the property legally described as a tract of land located in the northeast quarter, Section 3, Township 13 North, Range 11 East of the 6 p.m., Sarpy County, Nebraska, generally located southwest of South 156th Street and Schramm Road. The applicant's Hubble Realty, Sarpy West Industrial. And we've got several related items. Is there a motion to approve Ordinance 1963? Motion by Councilwoman Kloop. Second by Councilman Stube. Any council discussion? Please vote.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Related item F3, Resolution R230139. A resolution to approve a final plat for the property legally described as a tract of land located in the northeast quarter of Section 3, Township 13 North, Range 11 East of the 6 p.m., Sarpy County, Nebraska, generally located southwest of South 156th Street and Schramm Road. Applicants Hubble Realty, Sarpy West Industrial. So motion to approve Resolution R230139. Motion by Councilman Fanslow. Second by Councilman Stube. Any proponents or opponents? The applicant's representative is here. Any?
Members of the council, Larry Jobin, 11440 West Center Road, appearing on behalf of the applicant, simply here to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Any council discussion? Please vote.
Eight yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. F4, Resolution R230140. A resolution to approve the Sarpy West Industrial Subdivision Agreement. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R230140? Motion by Councilman Fanslow, second by Councilwoman Klook. Any proponents or opponents? Council discussion? Please vote.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. F5, Resolution R230141. A resolution to approve Christy A. Reynolds as the corporate manager for Sam's Club number 6181 for the Class C liquor license. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R230141? Motion by Councilman Gaines. Second by Councilman Glover. Proponents or opponents? Is Ms. Reynolds here? Okay, thank you. Any opponents? Council discussion? Please vote.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Thanks for being here. It's important to council that the applicants are here on those, so thank you very much. Resolution R230148, a resolution to call the general fund warrants of SID 151 Schweer Industrial Park. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R230148? Motion by Councilwoman Kloop. Second by Councilman Stube. Any proponents or opponents? Council discussion? Please vote.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Related item F7, Resolution R230149. A resolution to call the construction fund warrants of SID 151 Schweer Industrial Park. Motion to approve Resolution R230149. Motion by Councilman Stube. Second by Councilman Gaines. Proponents or opponents? Council discussion? Please vote.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. It's all the regular agenda items. Committee reports. I believe the Public Safety Committee met. Ms. Klook.
Yes, we did meet for about 45 minutes or so. Primarily, we were discussing the property maintenance code. It's been approved by the city council for about 9 months now. So we went back and just wanted to get a general overview of how it was going and what city staff was discovering with it. What we've discovered is that there really was not a large increase, if any, increase at all, with people turning in properties that might have maintenance issues. Which is fine. Maybe that just means we all have really good neighbors. But it has provided the tools that they needed to have for some pre-existing items. So the city staff feels like it was a good code to put in because it's allowed them to have better discussions with people and their property to reach some good resolutions. The biggest thing is that now we want to make sure people are aware that we have it so that it's more clearly laid out for homeowners, landlords, and everybody so that we're all on the same page, working with the same tools to achieve the same final goal, which is a great Papillion to live in. And that's the end of the report.
Thank you very much. Any comments from the floor? Council comments? Just a couple things from the last couple of weeks. Sarpy had another one of their events, and schools had their annual gala and kind of kick off to the school year. Google made their announcement of their expansion plans. It wouldn't say specifically what's going on at each of the sites, and the bulk of that expansion announcement was actually for the Lincoln site, but some of that's going to be in the Papillion jurisdiction. We're starting to have more conversations about the next legislative session. I always give the continued reminder if there's things that you are really interested in, make sure we're aware of those and we can be working those through a couple of channels. The latest one was the League of Municipalities. Amber and I are both on the larger cities legislative committee, so if there's things that you want to influence at the legislature, let us know and we can bring those to the league or to the United Cities and have those worked on. Some of the staff attended the 2023 Commercial Real Estate Summit this year, and that was really good. Most of that's industry, not government, but they talked a lot about what's going on with the economy and how that's affecting projects. I think it was good for staff to understand that. Ms. Powers already mentioned a number of these, but September's actually pretty busy. On the 8th, there's a ribbon cutting at All Seasons Medical. On the 16th, the library's having that author expo. The 19th is a groundbreaking at Founders Ridge Senior Living. The 21st, the Chamber has their annual economic development. So if you want to go to that, let Robin know and she can RSVP for you. And then the 24th was at Butterfly Garden. So a lot of activities happening in September. And then one I forgot is on the 16th also. We were the host city for that nationwide Patriot tour of that flag that traveled, and the homecoming of that is on the 16th at Sumter Amphitheater. So if you want to see that arrive, that'll be on the 16th. And I think that's all the major items. We will take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Councilman Glover. Second by Councilman Gaines. Please vote.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
It's only 7:12, so we'll adjourn for just over 15 minutes, and we'll come back at 7:30. And that will be a public hearing, so any general comments on the budget, absolutely appropriate as well. So, thank you. I'll call the Tuesday, September 5th, 2023 Papillion budget hearing to order. Ms. Brown, would you please take the roll?
Sunday. Mumgard. Gaines. Glover. Fanslaw. Klug. Stubbe. Engberg.
Present. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. And do we have an affidavit of publication on file?
We do.
And a current copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the back of the council chambers. We just have one agenda item tonight. The separate hearing is part of the state budget process, and then it does require it as a separate meeting, separately published. So that's why we did this one. So the only item on the agenda is B1, Ordinance 2004, an ordinance to approve the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget. It is a public hearing, but before I open it, the state also does require a budget presentation. And I think I'll just do what I did last year, which is basically a summary of the letter that I put with the budget that was public. But since these are televised, I'll go ahead and review that letter so people can get that. So just before opening the public hearing, then I'll give the high level. First of all, I want to thank the staff for all of the work. All of the staff, because early on, early spring, staff starts working on the budget at the staff level. They're very cognizant of the council goals and agendas, and so a lot of collaborative work between the departments to put together the rough draft of a budget. And then it comes up to administration, and it's worked, and then late July, early August, we start the series of one-on-ones with the council members, make sure we hitting your priorities, any issues or concerns in there. So one, thank you for that. Those meetings are invaluable to help us understand the priorities of each individual, so thank you for that. And then the budget was formally published to the public on August 11th with the August 15th council agenda, and then it was introduced by council on the 15th. So now we have the public hearing. At a high level, we remain in a real healthy position financially, even as we faced a number of unknowns, and that includes our state local sales tax rebates. I'll talk a little bit about that later, and then the national economy. And I think it's important to keep the broader perspective in mind as we work on the budget. Last year, this time, we were in the highest inflationary period since 1981, and the Federal Reserve's short-term borrowing rates had increased to the highest rate in 30 years. Now you fast forward to this budget cycle, the Fed's continued to raise the rates 12 of the last 13 times. The benchmark's the highest it's been in 22 years, and the prime rate is 8.5, and it hadn't been that high for probably at least 17 years. 2006 period before the 2008 recession. And that 8.5% is actually 25 basis points higher than it was when we introduced the budget just 2 weeks ago. So 2 budgets ago, we had the unknown of the global pandemic, and what did that mean with the economy? Last budget was the pending recession, and this one is what's the Fed's response to control inflation and jobs. So it's been pretty interesting to do budgets the last 3 years with all those unknowns. So we got the third year of those, but thankfully, and really a lot of thanks to the council, a lot of foresight and wisdom with the policies we put in place. They put us in a good place. 5 years ago, if you remember, we proposed and you fully supported a sales tax and use reserve policy. So when we saw spikes in sales tax, we would reserve some of that, knowing at some point in time the state may rebate that. And that was a critical policy because they came this year calling for some of those rebates. And so we'll be using that as part of the budget. So thank you for that. And then big question everybody has is what's going on with the levy. This budget does propose a 7.5% approximately drop in the levy over last year, and we will continue from the municipal side still having the lowest levy of all of the communities in Douglas and Sarpy, and then that'll be the third year in a row that we've been able to drop the levy. And again, that's because of the fiscal policies that you've put in place, the professionalism we've got at staff, and then also the growth we've been having. Important to note, the budget does not call for any bonded debt. Everything we're doing is cash on hand, so there's no bonded debt in this budget. And each department, as a general rule, budgeted about a 3% increase to account for inflation, and then we continue to be conservative on what our sales tax assumptions are. One of the new things this year, I mentioned it already, is the state rebate. So if people are familiar with the Imagine Nebraska Act of the legislature, where they will rebate the local sales tax. The issue is we don't know when the state enters into one of those agreements and that they're going to give our money away. And it's just one of those businesses one day wakes up and says, we want our refund. And the state did give us a notification that one of the large projects we do have to refund. And so, again, thank you for all of your support on that. And on that revenue note, I think about 31% of our general fund, somewhere in there. I'd have to look at Nancy to confirm it, but about 31%, I think, of our general fund is sales tax. It's our largest revenue source. So with a large portion of the sales tax being rebated back through Imagine Nebraska, we'll make that up with the cash we have in reserves from that reserve policy. So you'll see that. And then we anticipate getting about $3.2 million in sales tax from the state, excluding that, what's being held back. And that's basically about a 4% increase in sales tax that we're projecting. So we think we're conservative there. The 7.5% levy decrease brings us down to about 40 cents per hundred in valuation, and that is right at or just below the threshold that the state sets. If you go above that, then you go to some joint hearings and have a lot of extra steps to go through to set your levy, but we were below the state threshold as far as that goes. And so then we also have in there our new growth. So we did a series of annexations, so the large residential, the 3 industrial, plus our new growth. So we have an increase in the levy that's allowable by the state, plus our new growth. So that's what we've got. Our valuation is going to be about $3.8 billion, and that'll generate about $7.66 million in general fund revenue. And with that, we do not anticipate that we are above any threshold set by the state. So if you hear about the joint county hearing that people have to go to if they're raising property taxes too high, we don't have to go to that hearing because, again, we're below that threshold. On the expense side, on general fund, personnel's our largest expense in the budget, makes up about 71.5% of our general fund budget. The wage increases and the health insurance benefits are all in line with the 3 union agreements that you approved in our current budget cycle. The non-union employees, we average about a 4% wage increase for the management exempt, and then there's some allowable increase for some job performance and job comparability studies. We also, there was regulatory increases in the minimum wage for part-time employees. The minimum wage went up, and so we have that built into this budget as well for our part-time employees. And then for the first time with our regular part-time employees, we're going to offer vacation and holiday pay, and that's for competitive reasons in hiring. We got to start getting competitive, so we're going to offer that proportionally, and so we've got that in the budget. Some of the other items related to personnel, health and dental insurance for full-time employees, we're projecting a 15% increase. It might sound high, but everybody knows what's going on with health insurance, and we've seen that level of increase in the past. At this point in time, we don't know our actual increase number, so we're being conservative in assuming the 15%. From a positions perspective, we're adding 8 full-time employees through the general fund, 3 firefighters, and that was through the union agreement that you approved. We have 2 police officers. That's due to the annexation, and that was factored into the annexation analysis. Then a CALEA manager in the police department, a maintenance worker in the parks department, and a custodian at the landing out of the recreation department. And then we'll continue to invest in supervisor and leadership development. So that's kind of a recap of the staff side of things. On public safety, police anticipate they'll continue to retain the CALEA certification. The budget will allow for the replacement of 4 vehicles, so we don't get behind in that cycle. And then also hire 2 new officers, and again, that's because of our growth, but that was factored into the annexation analysis already. And with 2 new officers, we also have to get 1 new vehicle for those individuals. The biggest thing in the police department is the facility. That police station is, I'm looking at Ms. Kluke because I think you were on the council at the time, 25 years old maybe, 2022. It was built with the idea, I think, of a 20, 25, 30-year life. Of course, we're about that point, and policing and the community have changed a lot, so that facility needs a lot of work. We originally thought about just doing a minor remodel like we did City Hall. but as they got into it, we're realizing it's probably a little bit bigger than that. And if you remember the current budget we're in, you'd already approved setting aside some dollars for that project, so we already have some cash reserved for that. And then you also have approved already the architect that's beginning the work to figure out what that scope is. So what we're doing with this budget is taking another $3 million out of reserves and putting that into the police facility project. So $3 million in the proposed budget, 1.5 from the prior budget, so we'll have $4.5 million cash on hand once we understand the scope of that project. In the fire department, remember we have a partnership with two other agencies. A little over 56% of our budget in the fire department is paid for by the city of La Vista and the Papillion Rural Fire District. And then another 8% of the budget, it will be funded from fees through the fire department. And then we pick up the difference. I'd already mentioned 3 new firefighters, and that's consistent with the union contract. And then the bigger items that are being added, there's 10 sets of backup gear. The gear for the new firefighters, a replacement vehicle for one of the individuals, a new records management software, and then some funds for employee training. In the streets department, biggest thing there is the pavement management plan. I think we're staying on track there. The original plan was a 10-year plan, called for $2 million a year in investment. Obviously, with inflation, we know that $2 million needs to go up, so the current budget is $2.35 million for that project. And then for long-term planning, we know that 10-year plan now is probably more of a 12-year plan because of the annexations. We picked up more lane miles through the annexation, so that probably added a couple of years to the plan. And then we also still have, which is consistent with the current year, about $240,000 in the general pothole repair in addition to the UBOS program. And then there's also some software upgrades, some funds to maintain some aging infrastructure, and then a little bit more equipment for the growth that was factored into the annexation analysis. On the capital improvement plan, about $2.9 million in additional funding on the capital improvement plan. All of the projects proposed were in the current plan, and they are all scheduled without any financing. Again, these are cash funded. There's a replacement of a wide area mower, a new mower for growth. 3 of the previously mentioned police vehicles are out of the capital improvement plan. Got some traffic signal upgrades, a replacement of a street vehicle, an asphalt hot box. A large truck needs to be replaced, and then the purchase of a snowplow, again, due to the annexation, and that was in the analysis as well. Probably the only, I would say, controversial item in the budget, and we talked about it in all of the council one-on-ones, and so it'll just be an item that'll be worked out, but we do have in the budget the extension of Harrison Street, South Harrison, from over by Trumbull Park into the Tower District. If you remember right, the original charrette that the developer had that most of the council participated in, that connection was in that original concept, and then the preliminary plat and the final plat had that connection in there too. And so with the council's approval of the preliminary final plat and the subdivision agreement, we currently have that obligation. Since the obligation's in there, my proposed budget then has the dollars in there. I do understand that there may be some conversation about maybe delaying that or pulling it out. So if that amendment comes forth, we'll handle that at the third hearing. We'll take that amendment up at that time if you want to do that. And then the only other thing in there is the salt storage cover. On the bond fund uses about 25% of our levy. And our outstanding debt in the bond fund is about $90.6 million, but about 69% of that, or $62 million, is for the Papillion landing, which was voter approved. And so of the remaining amount, our debt service is about $3.7 million, including interest, and so that's in the budget. And then from the bond perspective, we continue to hold an AA1 rating with Moody's, so that's an investment grade rating. And we've held that rating since April of 2018 when we were upgraded. And we were just reevaluated not too long ago. So with the current economy, to hold our investment rate, bond rating, again, that says a lot of the policies that you've put in place. So again, thank you for that. Because of the economy, even though we have the higher bond rating, I don't anticipate we'll do any refunding of the bonds. We're not going to get any favorable interest rates out there, so we don't have any of that projected. In the recreation fund, The non-revenue generating programs of the rec department are budgeted in the general fund, and that's about $831,000. Most of the landing complex, is supported through the membership fees and donations and user fees and some other non-tax revenue. But there is a portion of staff that is supported through the general fund, and that was a policy that we established through the budget process with the council last year, and so we're continuing that same philosophy this year, so no change there. The water and sewer funds, proprietary funds, not tax dollars. Remember, we do a rate study about every 5 years, and so the rates that are set for water and sewer are still within the previous rate study that you already approved, so there's no action needed on that. We just follow the study. But this is the last year of that 5-year study, and so we are budgeting to do another rate study, and so that study is in this cycle, and then that'll come to you for an approval. And probably follow that same cycle then where that sets the rates and the expectations for the next 5 years. There is a new position that I hadn't mentioned because this one is not property tax. Again, it's the water and sewer fund, but a utility technician. It's a manager position, and it's combined water and sewer. And then that was some of our growth. And then we've talked for a few years about a clear well, and that's about a $15 million project, but the last couple of years we've been able to set aside quite a bit of money for that project, and this budget sets aside the last amount we need to actually do that project. And so you'll see some money coming from the capital facility fees and then the water sewer fund reserves to start that project. A couple of other little things in water and sewer is a Southwest emergency power booster upgrade, replacement of, again, some equipment and vehicles, and then some of the aging equipment in the sewer we have budgeted in. Good news is the water and sewer fund are separately rated by Moody's, and those are rated at an AA2, which is still considered an investment grade. And we do have, if you look at the rate study that was done 5 years ago, every year it projects how much cash we should have on hand, what should be in reserve, and what the balance of the bond fund should be. And we are fully funded from all of those perspectives, so we are right in line with the previous rate study, so we're in good shape there. The golf fund, again, proprietary, not property tax, consistent with the last quite a few years. No subsidy from the property tax or from the general fund. We are proposing using about $300,000 of the golf reserves. $250,000 of that will be at Terra Hills for golf cart path work, and then about $50,000 goes towards the bonded debt associated with Eagle. And there's no other real large projects in this budget that are proposed, but I will be calling sometime this winter, probably the golf ad hoc committee together to meet with Rob to now think of over the next 3 years what are the big projects we need to do so we can go ahead and get those into the cycle, and Rob's already working on that. The voter-approved half-cent sales tax, by the ballot language when that was approved was that money must be used for parks and recreation. It can't be used for anything else. Obviously, the bulk of that's paying the mortgage on the landing, and so that is there. And then in the sales tax reserve policy that you as the council approved, that also applies to the half cent. So we have to be setting some money aside in that reserve. So the bond fund and the required reserve are fully funded in this budget. So we're okay there. And then in addition to that, the biggest project is we're allocating about $1.5 million for major upgrades to City Park. If you've been following the budgets the last 4 years, every year we've been trying to hit a couple of neighborhood parks within different wards, all based on the park master plan that was approved. And according to the Parks Department, we've hit most of those neighborhood parks that are in big need. And so now it's time to go to City Park and do the big project that was in the master plan. So you'll see 1.54 million there, and $1 million of that is coming from Community Betterment Fund, the Keno, which is again not property tax dollars. And that's all consistent with the park master plan that we adopted in 2021. Some other projects out of the half-cent sales tax that must be used for parks and recreation. There will be some parking lot expansion at the landing complex. It's about $615,000. The Papillion Bay parking lot is in horrible shape. And it's a big price tag because there's actually drainage issues over there, so there's a lot of engineering involved. That'll be about $1.6 million, and we're estimating for that. As long as we're on Papio Bay, proposing $1 million for a renovation of the kiddie area. So that'll see a pretty big upgrade over in the kiddie area. And then Halleck Park Trail over in the Arboretum in that area, those trails are really bad. We've got $650,000 allocated for upgrades of that Halleck Park Trail. And then the Halleck Park parking lot, about $100,000 for general repairs of that parking lot. Then back to Papio Bay, that was also built 25 years ago, maybe, approaching that. At the time, it was a state-of-the-art pool within the state of Nebraska. I think it was the first zero-entry pool in the state. And it's still in great shape, but you think of the size of Papillion 25 years ago, and that pool is still the same size. And so we know with the growth, there's a demand there. And so there is $100,000 out of the half-cent sales tax that is being proposed to hire a consultant to evaluate what does Papio Bay of the future need to be, renovation, expansion, that type of thing. So that study is in this budget. And then we projected out that half-cent sales tax over the next 3, 4, 5 years for budget planning perspectives. We believe, based on current projections, that in about 3 to 4 years, there will be enough cash on hand to do a very significant expansion at Papio Bay. So do the study now, reserve money again for the next couple of years, and then actually do the project. But obviously, anything that comes out of the study will come to the council as a master plan and a recommendation, and you'll be part of that process. The Community Betterment Fund, again, not property tax, but this is the keynote. By law, it can only be used for community-type projects. It cannot be used for general operations. And we've previously discussed that land that was recently purchased over by Prairie Queen where the sediment pond is. We had some conversations about a potential disc golf course. That's proposed in this budget to do the disc golf out there. I already mentioned the city park enhancements of the $1.5 million, $1 million of that coming out of the community betterment. And then at Veterans Park, a small enhancement for a Purple Heart Memorial. The B-cycle stations that we have, there's a little bit of an operational cost there. We cover that out of the Community Betterment Fund, and then an additional contribution to the Nebraska Vietnam Veterans Memorial. And so again, by law, that money can only be used on community projects and not general operations. So just in closing, again, I always want to thank the employees. We got top professionals, and I will tell you, they take the mission, vision, and goals that the council set in the previous retreats seriously. You walk around the building, you'll actually see them posted in different places. So they are aware of those, and they operate within those. And with the growth we're having, they do a great job. And the department heads, I think all of them are true professionals in their fields. And we just got people that really care about Papillion, and that shows up in the budget planning. Again, the council, want to really thank you. Without the policies you put in place, we wouldn't be able to lower the levy and have the lowest one in Douglas and Sarpy County. And again, that's two different policies you passed. The one was the cash, what's an appropriate amount of cash to have on hand, and that forces us to have a reserve, and it's that reserve that allowed us to manage the last 3 years. And then the policy with the sales tax, so when these rebates come, we know we have the cash on hand to give that rebate and not panic, and we can just keep doing business as we do. So again, thank you for your wisdom and insight there. Big thank you to Amber and Mark. They probably have one of the hardest jobs, so strong leadership. They got the pressures of every day to get things done and budget constraints, but at the same time keeping the long-term vision of the council, so thank them. And Nancy's the biggest thanks. I think she's the one that lets us sleep at night with her fiscal management, her insight, and her wisdom. And when Nancy speaks, we all listen. So we may not always do what she says, but we always listen. So Nancy, thank you. And again, council, those policies that you adopted in 2010 and then there's 5 years ago, absolutely critical. So thank you for the foresight there. Back to the property tax levy. So according to the U.S. Census Bureau's latest data, and you can argue this a lot of different ways, but what's a median priced home in Papillion within city limits? Census Bureau would say about $231,600. That 40-cent levy that we're coming down to then is $77.17 a month, or $926 a year. Most people choose to pay more for their cell phone and their internet service than they do for the property tax for that 1 month at that median price. And for that, you're getting professional police, professional fire, you're getting public works, you're getting streets, you're getting library, parks, recreation, planning, building, and administrative services. So property tax is always a valid conversation, but I think we're being pretty wise with how we're using those dollars. Again, council came up with a mission in 2020 and the council retreat, and then the retreat after that, you reiterated it. It's to preserve our small town feel, promote quality of life while delivering exceptional services for our residents, visitors, and businesses, and to sustain an environment that people are proud to call home. And I think the goals that were set and the way the budget is set is right in line with that mission. And then again, I just can't close without thanking Nancy and her team one more time. We were again awarded that Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. That's put out by the Government Finance Organization. That is an absolutely voluntary item that goes beyond our audit. And the idea of putting that report together is transparency and financial reporting. And when that's put together, the comprehensive financial report, it gets then submitted to a professional board for review. And then after that review, you may get an award or you may not get an award. But we've participated in that now probably 10, 11, 12 years, somewhere in there. And I think every single year we have received the award. So it's very unusual. There's probably not many communities that do that. And for the public, if they want to read that, all of those reports are on the website, and they are easier to read than a regular audit. So again, council, thanks for your leadership and your guidance. I hope you find the budgets in line with all the discussions in the one-on-ones, in line with the mission and the vision and the goals that were set out. And with that as the presentation, I will open the public hearing. And for council, if there are any amendments to the budget, I think we mentioned this in the one-on-ones, we'll take those at the third reading. So the next council meeting, if there's any amendments to the budget, we'll take them up at the next one. It's a public hearing. I'll open it. Any proponents? Any opponents or neutral? Welcome. Anything budget related is appropriate. Thanks again.
Edward Weniger, 1709 Ridgeview Drive. So I've been coming to these meetings and school board meetings for a while, so it's taken me a little bit to figure out what all is going on. And I don't have an accounting background, so you guys can all correct me if I'm wrong, right? But it struck me finally at the school board meetings when they started talking about levy being the same. They could keep the levy, all things equal, with the bond they foisted upon us. And I guess my frustration is that, you know, you guys get to be the good guys because you get to lower the levy, and thank you for our 7.51% back. But as long as Dan Pittman keeps raising our valuations and our levy, right? Like at the end of the day, if he raises it 10%, you guys come out ahead 2.5%. And maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe I'm not understanding it properly, but it's very frustrating. I realize that Dan is the linchpin to all of this, if that's the case. But you know, at what point do we decide that the levy will be lowered, or that the levy will change to a point where the citizens actually come out ahead and are paying less than before? And then at the same time, we're developing almost every square inch we can to bring in more revenue so that, you know, the banks can finance more projects and mortgages, we make more revenue, and it's just a boulder rolling downhill, right? It never seems to end. So I'm just wondering, at what point do we change the overall trajectory where the citizens get some relief, because we have to deal with all the inflation and everything like that you mentioned as well at the same time. So, and then my final question is, Papillion Bay, the landing, do we make any money on those things? Are they just a drain, and are we considering demolition or all the options? So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Councilman Glover. Second by Councilman Ingberg. Please vote.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
We are adjourned. Thank you.